I'm
Commissioner Hanson.
Uh,
Commissioner Garcia.
So I believe Commissioner Garcia is actually on the phone, so I don't know if he's able to respond.
Checking the chat to see if he's there. Okay. So should we put,
As far as I know, you can put him as present, but I don't believe he's going to necessarily be able to be present by phone at the breakouts unless he actually is on his way in physically.
okay, Commissioner Hughes.
Present.
And we will mark Chair Roybal as excused.
Excused, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have quorum.
So that takes us to approval of the agenda. Manager Miller, do we have any changes that need to be noted?
Madam Chair, at the moment, I do not think we have any amendments to the agenda. What I did want to note, though, is if you look at the agenda, it is one continuous agenda for the full 2 days. So we'll pick up tomorrow where we leave off today.
Excellent. Thank you for noting that. So what is the pleasure of the board? Commissioner Hanson? I'm sorry, you're there.
I know. I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call for the vote? Maybe she has. There she is.
I apologize. The mute button would not unmute.
Yeah, I've had that.
All right, for approval, Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Is Commissioner Garcia off the phone?
I don't know how to answer that. I am so sorry.
We'll say abstain.
That sounds good.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay, and Chair Roybal excused. Okay, so three votes for approval of the minutes.
Thank you very much. So at this point, that takes us to the second item, which is the strategic plan overview. And I'm going to, for that, turn it over to Manager Miller, although she may be moving on to other people who will be doing the presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, plan and the county organization, just for information as we break out, before we break out into our groups. And Elias is going to start us off with that.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, commissioners, staff, and public. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody hear me? I just want to, okay, great.
Yes.
Let me get this started. I hope you can see the first page. It has our administrative complex. Are you able to see that?
Yes, it's being shared. Yes.
Perfect. I'll start off with the first page. And it's my understanding the plan was adopted in 2018, June of 2018. And I just want to go quickly through the mission statement that was created and approved in 2018. And our mission is to provide a safe, sustainable, healthy community through a proficient, transparent, and accessible government. We also worked on core values, and we have 4 of them. I won't read them, the description, but I'll just name the core values: integrity, respect, innovation, and excellence. And I know that because I'm relatively new to the county, short of 3 months, during my onboarding process, I had to go through the core values and understand the core values and the mission statement. So any new employee is exposed to these concepts. I want to talk about the population goals. So we have 4, and provide a safe community. Goal 2, promote a sustainable community. 3, support a healthy community. And 4, be a proficient, transparent, and accessible government. I want to talk over some milestones that we've had with our strategic plan. First is obviously we adopted the strategic plan in June of 2018. In 2019, we were providing quarterly reports on progress on strategies and tasks. In 2020, we continued to do quarterly reports, and we adopted and implemented a 5-year ICIP policy along with a 2022-2026 plan. Third milestone, we completed allocation of capital resources for 2021-2023. And in our current year, we still continue to do quarterly reports, and we are now in the process of updating our strategic plan. This graph indicates, for those of you that are very familiar with our plan, we have objectives and then strategies, and then we have some action items underneath those. What you see in front of you is all those action items, and they're categorized between completed, closed, in progress, or we are off target. And there's many factors that we can identify on why we are off target on some of these actions. Anyhow, the completed and closed, the reason you see closed is because there are certain tasks that we started in 2018, but due to the close of the youth detention center, those are no longer tasks that we need to focus on. As you can see, we have a lot of tasks in all the populations. We have, beyond that, we have completed and closed various tasks, and I think we're making a lot of progress, hence why it's important to have our strategic plan is to note the progress that we're making as a county. The next slide is what we're calling the county operating resources. And what you see is the budget versus actuals. Though I'm colorblind, so I apologize up front, but I believe the first 2 are turquoise and a lighter turquoise. You'll see that budgeted revenue and actual revenue. The expenditures are expressed in our Santa Fe County logo yellow and a lighter yellow on actual expenditures. And you can see what our resources are when we are allocating to our strategic plan. This is important for us to know as we start moving forward and updating the strategic plan. You can see that our budgeted revenues have decreased in the last 3 years. And we are anticipating somewhat of a decrease as well for fiscal year 2022. Obviously, the pandemic had a big factor into our revenue projections. So that's something to consider when we start going through the strategic plan and allocating resources.
Chair, I want to make a point on this slide. If you might be wondering why we have much higher budgeted revenue than actual revenue. That has to do with when we budget and roll budget for capital projects. And so, or we budget cash. But the light turquoise bar is the one that really reflects our recurring revenues. And then the light gold reflects our expenditures against those revenues as well. And then you'll have some in there, and it's just hard for us to give you enough charts to show how much was cash from, say, a bond issue. So we issue bonds, we might see a bump in revenue that year by $10–20 million, but then we budget that and carry it over year after year until we actually complete those projects. So that's why you'll see that major difference between budgeted cash and actual, or budgeted revenue and actual revenue, as well as budgeted expenditure versus actual expenditure. Then also some of that play in the joints, if you want to call it that, is the way that we do conservatively budget our salaries. We budget everybody with 100% of positions funded, so that if an office actually has all their positions filled and can keep them filled, they don't have a budget shortfall. But then what we do with any vacancy savings, as we call it, which is any position that is vacant for a certain amount of time, we carry that cash over. The departments are not authorized to spend that because we carry that cash over into the next year to fund our fixed asset package. We often talk about capital assets or fixed assets. Those are things like the vehicles, heavy equipment, computers, all of our IT, cascading and all of our IT stuff. We try to stay pretty current, not let our fixed assets get too run down. So that's the way we finance that. And then you have the capital projects, which is usually funded by general obligation bond, capital grants, and capital outlay GRT. And we treat that a little bit as one-time funding unless it's going to pay debt service. If one of those, and we have quite a bit of our GRTs that pay debt service for BDD, the two admin buildings, the courthouse, and those are funded by the jail. Those are all funded by revenue bonds versus the property tax GO bonds. So you'll see that in recurring revenue, but there's also an associated debt expenditure, recurring expenditure with it. And then sometimes we just budget the cash and pay as we go on some projects. So I just wanted to note that you might be wondering why such a big difference between budget and actual, and that has to do with the cash that we infuse in for capital projects predominantly.
Thank you, Manager Miller.
This is Rudy. I have a question. Or are we waiting till the end? Sorry.
What? Can we wait until the end of the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Manager Miller, would you like to speak to our?
So then, as I mentioned, one of the things about our budgeting process and our approach to budgeting, what that has done for us is give us a AAA rating from Standard & Poor's on our bonds. And this is part of our, this was the credit rating from Standard & Poor's, and some of the comments in our bond rating document that went out with the latest issue that we just bid out yesterday. And it talks about, there's a lot of things that factor into our bond rating that we don't have control of. And that is our economy, the pandemic, that our economy is diversified to a certain degree, but heavily dependent on tourism. And so S&P considers that a weakness for us. They also consider another weakness our relatively low median income for the cost of living here, and just kind of our demographics. But they consider some of our strong points and the areas that we really do influence our bond rating and our credit rating in the investment world, is because we have good reserves. We have the way we've even dealt with the pandemic with our budget has shown that our revenues are fairly resilient, even in light of the pandemic, where we've lost in grocery receipts tax. We've got fairly stable property tax, and that's 74% of our operating revenues. Also, they really feel that I like the term, our management is sophisticated, but I think that their point of that is that we have very seasoned directors and management dealing with our finances, and that helps strengthen our credit rating. And then you'll note our conservative budgeting practices are expected to produce better than budgeted fiscal results for 2021 in spite of the pandemic. So that this is just kind of a grade on the way we approach our finances and our fiscal management. And we have the highest grade that we can get. And I appreciate that Commissioner Hamilton joined us on the bond sale yesterday. Our bonds are highly attractive, and we did $24+ million in, it was $20 million in new issue and a $5 million refunding, and we ended up with a interest rate of about 1.26, even significantly better than the financial advisors thought we would do. The first bid actually came in better than our estimate. So it proves to actually save us quite a bit of money in the long run on all of our debt financing. Go ahead, Elias.
Thank you. And going to the county operating resources, to also consider when we're talking about new objectives or strategies, this is what we're calling the staff capacity. This is the budgeted FTE for the last 3 years in our current fiscal year. The red represents the vacancies. And as you can see, we haven't operated over 90% of our budgeted FTEs. If you look at our current fiscal year, we have more vacancies, and that's my understanding. It's a bit has to do with the hiring freeze that we had in the first semester of our fiscal year. And the next slide, it's the same graph, but broken down by department. You can see where some of our vacancies, where we have more vacancies, public safety, county clerk's office, in terms of the budgeted FTEs per department.
The only other thing, Madam Chair, that I would add to that is that significant level of vacancies this year is because we did have the hiring freeze, but we lifted that hiring freeze at the end of December, and we have certainly picked up hiring. Additionally, we've done a pretty targeted recruitment effort in public safety to include corrections, sheriff, fire, and RECC. We just hired, I think it's 10, maybe 12. I'm getting my numbers confused, but cadets for a fire academy, and we've hired quite a few dispatchers as well. And we're doing a big recruitment effort right now. So we expect that to turn around and get back to our more normal levels. But we are always challenged with keeping our positions filled, even though we have very competitive salaries in most areas. It's the nature of the beast that the city and the state and Sandoval County and Bernalillo County, we all eat out of the same food trough. So when it comes to human resources, so we definitely have that challenge of keeping people, as well as Los Alamos quite often takes employees that we have recruited and trained. So I just wanted to add that about the employee challenges.
Excellent. Thank you. So at this point, we could take some questions. Commissioner Garcia, you had a question? Commissioner Garcia? While we're waiting for Commissioner Garcia, do other commissioners have questions? I'm trying to scan to look for hands. But if somebody has a question, please pipe in because I can't see everybody at once. We'll have an opportunity to take more questions after the next segment, which is on the organizational chart. So maybe, Elias, if you could go, or Manager Miller, whoever is taking 2B.
I think this is going to bring up our chart. This is just the overall county, and only reason, hopefully we can make that big enough for you to see. The only reason we are putting this up here is just to kind of remind, as we go into our population goals and we do some updating to the strategic plan, where some of the responsibilities of the actions, tasks, and strategies will end up falling. So you see that there's the Board of County Commissioners, the 5 districts, and you appoint the county manager. Then we have our other 5 elected offices, the county assessor, county clerk, county sheriff, county treasurer, and probate judge, who are elected county-wide and are statutorily responsible for the operations within their office. Under the county manager, we have a joint film office with the city of Santa Fe. That consists currently of 1 employee, and that's Jennifer Labar, who's doing a wonderful job at keeping our film industry connected here in Santa Fe, and the county attorney's office. Then we have the deputy county manager, and within the county manager's office, the support services, I'll say, report up through the deputy county manager to the county manager, and that's our IT, HR, finance, and our media functions, as well as the county manager's office functions, which is Tessa Joe, and that's our intergovernmental relations, our front office, the mail room, and the constituent liaisons. Then reporting directly to the county manager, our other department directors, and that's public safety, Director Cedillo, growth management, which is Director Penny Ellis Green, and within growth management is our housing director, Joseph Montoya, and the housing board, and then community services director, Rachel O'Connor, and public works director, Gary Hugh-Brown. So we have kind of 4 population goal areas, and they typically fall within one of those 4 departments in conjunction with our elected officials' offices. And then you have all the support services to help move all of the strategies and tasks forward.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Excellent. So, yeah, I was just gonna say we have another opportunity for questions. So, Commissioner Garcia.
So really, this is for Elias. Elias, you talked about earlier action items that were on the one of the spreadsheets. Explain to me those action items. And another question is, you talked about off targets. Why are we off targets, and what's happening with that? And then also in regards to the detention center closing down on Airport Road, what is our plan for that? And then also in regards to the ICIP plan, how many projects are on there, and are we going to add more projects, and what did we get funded for this year? And then you also talked about you also talked about, I want to know what our cash reserves are in our budget currently. So if you can answer those, or I can give you some time to answer those.
The first two parts of the question, I'd like to keep the questions to things directly relevant to strategic planning. We'll have Buddy's budget study later, so clearly budget's related to this, but I think the first two parts of the question, Elias, are fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The action items in the strategic plan, the way it's designed, we have a population goal, and underneath each goal there's objectives, and underneath each objective there's strategies, and then underneath a strategy there are action items. The action items are tasks the departments are able to do to achieve accomplish an objective. So they're just action items that we're able to track. So some strategies may have 2 or 10 action items, and it's my understanding that as soon as we complete those 8 items, for example, then we can say that we've accomplished that strategy. I hope that Madam Chair, Commissioner Garcia, did the action item question.
Madam Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Garcia, did you, we provided a paper copy to everybody of the, yes, so that's the strategic plan that you're holding up. We provided that earlier, and in addition, I think there is another packet of material that is a little more summarized. Elias, did all the commissioners get?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
So for Commissioner Garcia, if you look, we have objectives, and I will say objective 1.1, enhanced fire protection programs, for instance. And then underneath that, there are strategies. Create a year-round sustained wildland program. Then underneath that, there are actions. So when Elias was reporting earlier in the presentation about things that are either completed, things that are in progress, or things that are not on target, we're referring to those items. And every quarter, we've reported to the BCC those items. We've given an update on that report and talked about ones where we're off target. Lots of reasons they could be off target. It's all different. Some of it's the pandemic. Some of it's that we haven't been able to change legislation possibly. Some of it might be our own human resources. Some of it might be financial resources. Every single one of them is different, but that's what that chart that Elias was talking about in the presentation was, just to give you a really broad overview of everything that's in the strategic plan and where we stand. If you were to go back and look at that, we've completed quite a few things, and we have a lot of things in progress, but we also have things that have kind of either stalled or we just haven't been able to move forward. I think, we've never been under the impression we would get every single thing in the strategic plan done. And particularly because, I'll give an example. I think we have in here about doing the updating some portions of the code. Well, we didn't know when we put that in there that we were going to be doing an a revision to the code for energy efficiency, and that the state moved their energy efficiency benchmark. So we turned around and said, okay, let's get our code in alignment with that. But that meant then that was not something we had planned into the strategic plan and into our allocation of human resources. So that's the kind of thing and so Commissioner Garcia, that that slide refers to everything in the strategic plan, and it's just a high-level summary of all of the actions and tasks in the plan.
Thank you, Manager.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I think it would be prudent to go on to 3, which is the presentation of the draft citizen survey, so that we can move reasonably through these background materials that are critical to then the subsequent discussions. So, Manager Miller?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have the final report, but we did have conversations with the vendor that we hired to do the citizen survey, and we also and I have like a little summary in talking to them, but we will have the report. We will have the report by the end of the month. I'm hoping we actually have it by Elias, are you able to share those slides?
He is. I see them.
No, this is the other presentation. I'm looking for the one on the,
Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
This-
Never mind. I didn't realize the first page was the same. It looks different because I sent it to him in a different format, so he changed it. So let's see if we can go to the second. There we go. So since 2013, the county has participated in the National Community Survey, and that's it's in conjunction with the ICMA, which is the International City County Managers Association, and we did the first survey back in 2013 as we came out of the economic downturn. Then we did another one. We had one, we were going to try to do it every 2 to 3 years, but we did have a delay between 2013 and 2018, but we did it in 2018. We had it scheduled for last spring, and then the pandemic hit, so we held off because we felt like nothing was going to be very reflective of what was happening at that time. So what it consists of sending out 3,000 surveys. They're randomly selected households that the 3 times that we've done it, they're households within the county, evenly distributed through the districts, but they're not in the city limits. We were trying to focus responses specifically for county services, and that was started on January 14th. They collected those surveys all the way through March 4th and are compiling all of the results, but we were given some preliminary data from that. And that is, of the 3,000 surveys that were mailed, 754 residents responded to the survey. That was slightly lower than in 2018. We had 825. And in 2013, though, it's better than 2013. We only had 600 and some responses. Then we also had an online version. Those two are not combined because the online is not random. It is anybody who chooses to respond online. But there'll be multiple reports provided for the board, really detailed analysis of the responses. The primary report is a livability report, and it provides that representative sample of the 754 residents. Margin of error when we get those is about 4% from all the respondents. And it was about a 27% response rate. Next slide. Then after we did the mail-in, we made available the web-based survey to the residents, which, by the way, thank you to the commissioners who sent information out in their newsletters about the online survey. We received 85 responses from that. It started on February 18th. And the final report will contain results from the opt-in web-based survey, but they will be separate from, that'll be one report of what came in from those. So that's why they don't combine them with the other 754 responses. You'll receive a separate report on that. Then, next slide, please. Like I said, the main report is on livability. This is a community-based survey, and they use this same survey across the country. So we're benchmarked with other local governments and governments that use it across the country, and particularly this year. They had not as many participants, so it was very hard to have a benchmark that was our exact type of government. So one thing to keep in mind when it's looking at benchmarks to other or our results to the benchmark, you're also competing against major metropolitan cities, little communities. So it's really hard to say what that is. One of the things I've asked for is if we can break down some comparisons by district, because our districts are so different, and that to get some more data just by district. But the study is based on getting residents' opinions on 10 central facets of a community. That's economy, mobility, community design, utilities, safety, natural environment, parks and recreation, health and wellness, education, arts and culture, inclusivity, and engagement. What we found from our survey responses so far are these kind of high-level perspectives from the citizens. Next slide, please. And that is that our community members see improvements in the economy, yet they also see it as an area of opportunity. Residents enjoy the county's natural environment and outdoor amenities, with most people either saying they consider Santa Fe's environment good or excellent place to live. Health and wellness are community priorities, yet quality and availability are considered relatively low by our residents. And that could be, the hospitals and doctors and availability. It's not necessarily county services. I want to make sure that you understand this survey is about livability. Some of the questions, if you saw one of the surveys, there's close to 200 questions on it, and some are very specific about county services, and others are about the general livability of the area. Residents' views of local governance and leadership have improved in some areas, but continue to be an area of opportunity. And that's things like honesty, integrity, transparency, trustworthy. There's always opportunity, I think, in local governments or government in general to improve. So you will see that. COVID-19 did have an impact. In our conversations yesterday with the vendor, they said, they noticed it across the country, that COVID-19 had an impact on 2020 and 2021 ratings, such as the ability to participate in community meetings and community events. I mean, that's kind of obvious, particularly in those states that had lockdown. They definitely saw, the results of that across the country. And then responses to the open-ended questions put law enforcement and crime prevention, I think I might have left off and other public safety things as their highest. So the next slide was what they gleaned from the open-ended questions, and you will be provided all of the answers. They're very short. Most people just wrote 1 or 2 words. But the question that we asked, or what do you think are the 3 most important services provided by Santa Fe County government? And this is what, and it doesn't add up to 100% because you could put more than one answer. But this is how they range. So it just gives you an idea coming into the strategic planning. We had hoped to have the report before we did strategic planning. But and this was interesting, 61% said public safety, and they mentioned either police, crime prevention, fire, animal control. 28% road maintenance, road repair, snow removal, parking. It means they put one of these words in that open-ended question, so they got grouped into that area. Interestingly, 20% land use. I have a feeling, because from what I could see geographically, most responses came from District 5, which is our growth area. So of course, in our growth area, I think a lot of people are very in tune to land use and development. Digital connectivity, self-service, code enforcement. 20% waste management, utilities, trash, recycling, 17% healthcare services, hospitals, food, 15% parks, recreation, open space, 15% traffic flow, road safety, sidewalks, which we don't really have any county sidewalks, bike lanes, public transportation. But these are things important to our residents, that they have safe places to walk. Education opportunities, programming opportunities at 12%. And then the next three were all about the same, and that was government, taxes, communication, trust, business, economic development, jobs, water, air quality, water quality issues and air quality issues. 9%, this one surprised me, conservation, environmental sustainability, energy efficiency. I thought that would be higher, but not from our respondents on the written one. I haven't seen the results on that issue versus the online. We might look at that and see whether people who actively went on to answer how they differ. Community services, senior services, sense of community, and then last one, 5% for housing and homelessness. 12% said don't know or put nothing, and 3% had something else. I thought this would be good for you. I was hoping we could get you the actual reports before today, but I thought this was good for you to realize this is what our residents provided feedback on being important services from Santa Fe County. So as we look at our strategic plan, how do we keep this in mind where we put some more or where we refine some of our actions. And then the last slide on this issue on the survey was that we will have the final results. This was just a really small snapshot from the survey. You will receive about 7 detailed response reports. We'll do a presentation of that either at the next at our first budget study session on April 16th, if we have them, or for sure we will have them by April 27th BCC meeting, and we'll present it at whichever meeting is first after we receive the final reports. And we just wanted to give you some highlights to help inform you for today's session and tomorrow's session. So with that, I would stand for any questions that I might be able to answer relative to the survey.
So are there any questions?
I have a quick question.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please. Okay, I've got both of you. So Commissioner Hughes first and then Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I'm just wondering in terms of the trying to align this to the demographics of the county, was that just along racial and ethnic groups, or did you try and do it by age, by renters versus homeowners, that sort of thing as well? I'm just curious what group we're really surveying here.
I will have to look. I think it is all demographics, but I don't know about the homeowner versus renter perspective. But I believe income levels, ethnicity, that type of thing was definitely in it. But I'll have to look if one of the factors was homeowners versus renters.
Well, and also
we'll
age.
know that before the and age was definitely one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I filled out the survey and I found it basically lacking. I didn't feel like it was really geared towards Santa Fe County. I didn't find that it was engaging, so to speak, with the constituents. And I think we have a really small sampling here. And so I don't think that it's something that we should depend on as what is important. I do agree with a number of these things, but I know personally from my constituents, if they fill this out, which it's hard to get people to fill out surveys, period, conservation and environmental sustainability would have been way higher. And so I did not find it a very useful tool. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
That's actually yes, Commissioner Garcia.
Just really quick, surveys are hard these days because I bring this up all the time. My grandma doesn't have a cell phone. My grandma has a home phone. And how do we reach out to people like that? Because these days, I find it hard is everything's social media. I hate that stuff. I do and I don't, but I don't do that stuff. And it just, as Commissioner Hanson kind of mentioned, how do we reach out to Rudy's grandma? Please somebody call Rudy's grandma and get her input. But I understand what Commissioner Hanson is saying, and so I just wanted to bring that up. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Can I ask you to turn what the last two commissioners mentioned into a question to you, Manager Miller? Will the final report have some assessment of potential biases in their survey and in the way they targeted respondents and that sort of thing? Because it's very possible for the reasons mentioned that pure random distribution only through limited media might not be an unbiased approach. It's not my area of expertise per se, but I think that would be interesting if the group that did the survey responded to that.
So, okay, so there's a few things that we're commenting on. One, this survey was a mail-in survey. So to Commissioner Garcia's point, it was mailed directly to residents. So it was meant to not be a social media or a computer-based survey. Mail-in surveys, though, to that point, are hard to get people to respond to, but that's how you get random. You can't get random on the internet. Once we opened it up on the internet, that's based on the people who tend to want to tell us what they like to see. The survey was actually directed at all the different demographic groups in our community to try to find those of different age, different ethnicity throughout the county. We had done, and so I don't know whether it can give you information on bias, but it will definitely break down responses by demographics. So and then I asked too if they could break down responses by demographics within each district, because we know how many people from each district responded and where they were. And we know, and then we know the demographics about that person, their ethnicity, their age, et cetera. Like I said, I just can't remember if owning it. I want to say there was a thing, do you own a home? But it had income levels, ages, gender, ethnicity, all of that. So, I just don't happen to have one in front of me, or I would let you know about the renter versus homeowner. And then in the reports, it will break it down by each one of those groups. So you will see, that's why I said they're very detailed reports. As to whether it's considered an effective survey, we did, in 2010, we did a survey when we were coming out of the economic downturn about what was important to people. And that one was done by a local firm, and it was totally done by writing up the questions and everything. And it was really interesting because what came back as the number one thing that the county should cut out was broadcasting their board meetings. So
Okay.
I actually want to go dig it up because I can tell you not a single commissioner liked that. But that truly was, if the county, because it was a survey about what could we cut out of our budget when we had a 25% decrease in decrease in revenues. And they basically said, well, you don't need to be on every radio station. You don't need to be on the TV. You don't need to broadcast all this stuff. And that was the last thing that the commissioners wanted to cut out of the budget. We did cut quite a bit of it, but much of it has been added back in as revenues came back. But I just bring up that because you might not necessarily like the responses that you get, even in a survey that you try to make targeted. And that's the other side of it. The reason that it's done the way that it's done, this is a trademarked survey that is to try to give you a sense of across the country, how do you compare in all of these areas? If you, one of the things, and when we first contracted with them, we didn't like it either. We were like, well, it doesn't necessarily apply to, some of these questions don't apply to the county. But the point of them is that you're trying to get an opinion across a benchmark of, and then what we'd like to do is actually focus a little bit more on benchmarks with other counties that are similar to Santa Fe County within the Southwest, for instance. But they just didn't have enough people, enough entities engaging in the survey to make that statistically relevant. So, so that's why we've used this one. We started it back when because the board at the time wanted to try to find some way of doing regular surveys and for them to be somewhat of the same type of survey. It's slightly different questions than the last time, but to try to gauge our own progress in certain areas. Are we considered by the general public or Santa Fe County residents, are we considered to be doing better in governance than we were 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 10 years ago? So it was also that, to try to do a similar survey. In addition, because of the package we have, we can do more online surveys for free. So we may want to do some and drill down in some of those areas, but you're only going to get those people. You're not going to get Rudy's grandma because it's going to be online. So that's a challenge with doing the online, but it's available for us, and we can over the next year or two. I think we have access to that portal to do some more focused surveys on those things that came out of the existing one.
Okay, that's good to know. Commissioner Hanson.
So just to point out, which I think is very interesting, that Manager Miller says we have no sidewalks, but in my district in Agua Fria, we have lots of sidewalks and people want more sidewalks. So there are certain areas in the county that do have sidewalks. I know in general, sidewalks are not something that exists in the county. So, you know, I just find it, maybe if it's shorter, maybe if we do more targeted kind of surveys or promote them in a different manner. You know, I don't know if this was, I know this was mailed randomly, but it was 3,000 people and we have 85,000 people in the county, or 80,000. I don't know what the census has come up with exactly. That's a very small percentage of people. So,
Right.
So thank you. I mean, I think it's always interesting to see what we have, and I don't want to belabor the point because we have so much to go through.
Right. Well, I appreciate it,
Thank
but
you.
it's a point that you're welcome. It's a point that it can be used as a piece of information, in comparison to the kinds of constituent interactions the commissioners have over long periods of time. So if we don't have other questions, I think it would be good to move on to number 4, which is strategic plan primary goals overview, so that we can continue to get through some of the basics. Manager Miller, are you taking this one as well? She just blanked out on me.
Yeah, that would be Elias. Sorry.
Ah, thank you, Elias. You were probably waving at me and I didn't catch it.
Madam Chair, this is just a overview of the primary goals, and hope, and you'll be able to see these goals once we do our breakout rooms. But we just wanted to do an overview for the commissioners and staff and the public. As you can see on population goal 1, we have 5 objectives and various strategies underneath those objectives. And as Commissioner Garcia asked a question about action items, between each strategy, there are action items that would accomplish that strategy. And so I think everybody that is participating in the breakout rooms has been emailed these documents, so they have it available. On the population goal 2, which is promote a sustainable community, we have 4 objectives and various strategies, and I don't want to read through all of them. I just want to note that structure of the strategic plan, so we have a good reminder of those things as well. Population goal 3, we have 7 objectives and various strategies, as you can see on this. And then the last slide, which is our population goal 4, we have 3 objectives and various strategies to support those objectives. And just quick overview, and we're about to start breaking out into our rooms, but I wanted to introduce Mark Bennett, who is our facilitator for this process. He has helped various local government organizations, state agencies, universities with strategic planning. Mark, are you hopefully
I'm here.
available?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Elias.
Thank you.
So I'm glad to join you again. I recognize some familiar faces from the board for the session we had at the Max Paul Multipurpose Center back in 2018. And it's a best practice for organizations not only to commit to serious strategic planning, but also to do formal review. And goodness, if you think about the times that we've all been living through, it's even more important to revisit a strategic plan when so many things have shifted in the operating environment, to really consider what nobody anticipated. I don't recall the issue that we're living through now being raised during our 2018 meetings when this plan was formed. So none of us anticipated all these impacts, and yet that's the reality. So what it means is there's a great wisdom in coming together and thinking together again, and really building upon the work that you did before. So in order to do that, we've designed these 2 meetings to feature discussions in small groups. to really look at this structure that Elias put up on the screen and use it as a set of guardrails within which to talk about how do we adapt this plan to the reality that we're facing. So we've set up some criteria or some guidelines to really help you in your small groups, and that's what's on the screen now. This went out to you earlier this morning, just before the meeting. And you don't have to read it along with me. If you wish to, you can, but I'll give you the highlights, and then you've got it as a reference document. We're going to spend about 155 minutes in the agenda, broken into 2 parts and plus a break. And so that's 70 minutes for goal number 1 and 70 minutes for goal number 2. And then we'll let you know when to take that break in halfway through your discussion groups, so people can get away from the screen for a few minutes and, of course, attend to anything that they need to remain comfortable and present in the meeting. Your major responsibility is to be a good participant, which means to mix contributing and sharing your views with listening and making room for other people, and really honor that everybody in the group may have a contribution to make. So really inviting and being encouraging of people to speak up. You're going to be supported by a timekeeper and a note keeper to really gather the ideas, because you never know when a pearl is going to come from somebody, and it may be an idea about a new action item. It may be an idea about a different objective or strategy that is relevant during these times. So your ideas are welcome. We won't be able to discuss them thoroughly during this session, but we will capture them and put them in a report of the meeting so that they can be cranked into the actual plan revision that will happen after these meetings. So that's the essence of what I'm going to be asking you to do. And I will tell you the heart of the matter for, I believe, a county like Santa Fe or any of my other organizational clients during these times is how to adapt. And it's that question of what's wise adaptation look like? Do we stick with exactly what we cooked before, or do we need to reprioritize within the plan, or is there something missing that needs to be added that's relevant and important? So all of those are fair questions. We have limited time, however, so people need to be sort of right to the point and make their suggestions or ideas and find out what other people think. You need to work with your note taker so that he or she can really capture your thoughts. So we have those in a record of the meeting that will be useful to us to go over in more detail. And it will be very important to use your time well. And in order to do that, I've got the guidelines here. I'll say don't beat around the bush is probably the most important guideline. Go right to the point that you want to make. Or it may be a question that you want to know if somebody else in the group has an answer to. And really adopt a mindset of learning from everybody and thinking about what everybody has to contribute, because some people have technical expertise on public safety or fire control and suppression that others don't have. But other people have their grandmothers who are residents and they're residents of the county, and they can speak with that voice as well about what's important within the county. So there are lots of different ways that people can speak with some authority and credibility about what's important. And that's the fundamental question in your small groups is we're not going to be able to do everything. We have less money. Our staff vacancies are greater. Within our resources, what's most important in the strategic plan that we need to prioritize and make sure we can keep moving forward on until the economy comes back and the resources that we're used to having are available again. So that's the central question in your small groups. What is most important? What should our priorities be within this plan? Or some new priority that we believe is missing. Because at the end of each small group in each population goal area, you're going to have an opportunity to identify 10 things that you think need to be priorities within the goal area. And that's what I'm going to be asking you to point towards in your discussions. Keep thinking about what's most important. Tell your colleagues what you think is most important. Hear from them what they think is most important. You don't have time to get down in the weeds and start discussing in detail specific strategies and action items. You have to stay at this larger view of fundamental importance, given the times we're in and the concerns and issues that are affecting people in the county. So that's the essence of your work, is to be a good listener, to talk about what you think is most important within the framework of the plan. And certainly if you think something is missing from the plan, you can identify that as an idea or a recommendation, and it can get captured in the notes. So that's the essence of your work together. And our master timekeeper will let the small groups know, but we'll have your timekeepers in the groups trying to keep you on task. And I'll just give you as an example, in goal number 1, you've got 5 objectives. So that really gives you about 12 minutes to spend on each objective to not neglect any of the other objectives. So the discussions have to be succinct and focused. And if you stay focused on what's most important here, I think that will keep you right in the heart of what we need from you, as to what can you validate that's in the plan that needs to stay front and center, and what things need to be elevated, and make sure that other things don't detract from them. So that's the essence of what I would like to say to you today. You've got this structure that you invested a lot in, that you've been using over the last couple of years, and we're now going to figure out how to tune it up and keep it highly relevant to the existing needs and what's around the corner.
Mark, I'd like you to clarify some of the time frames we're going to be operating in, either you or Elias or whomever. You mentioned 155 minutes.
Right.
Total in breakout sessions. I recognize that we do not have 155 minutes left between current time 10:22 and 12 o'clock. Is that what's intended to be spent just on 1 and 2 today? So we'll be spending 80 something minutes. Is this between today and tomorrow? So I just want to know how we're planning to structure this.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. I believe we were going to go till 1 today. I had 9 to 1.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
So our intent was to go through the start of the agenda and have ample time to be able to target goal 1 and 2. We intended to end the meeting at 12, knowing that could be a slightly extended. Our meetings typically don't end at the time. However, we do have additional time where we have time tomorrow as well. So the 155 minutes was under the impression or the intent that we would have enough time today to go over goal 1 and 2. And as Manager Miller indicated in the beginning of our meeting, is that this would be a rolling meeting tomorrow. To whatever we were not able to accomplish in this agenda, we would pick up tomorrow.
I get it. I just want to be explicit about it. I think it's important to check and see if everybody who's on the call, starting with the commissioners, but the staff are obviously critically important to the discussions as well, are available until 1 o'clock. I probably am. I didn't realize it was in the plans to go past that. But can other commissioners pipe up as a start and see if everybody actually is available to continue?
I can go until 1.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Hughes?
I can go until 12:30. I have to be somewhere at 1.
Yes. Commissioner Garcia?
I could probably go till 12:30 as well.
Okay, thank you.
But I appreciate the facilitator actually giving us the time limit, and so thank you, Madam Chair.
So I would take that to ask our facilitator and our manager and deputy manager to interpolate time frames for moving between the two objectives accordingly. The other thing is, are we going to get instructions on how to get out to into the breakout groups?
Madam Chair, I apologize on the time frames, and I will work with Mark once we go into breakout sessions so that we adjust the time accordingly and be able to bring everybody back to the main room. And if you don't mind, I'm going to have Daniel Frescas just walk us through on what's about to occur and take us into these breakout rooms.
Okay, that's great. And no apologies were necessary. I just wanted to get it really clarified and specific. So I appreciate it. Daniel, is that put you up as?
Good morning, Madam Chair and County Commission. So I'm going to click start breakout sessions, and everybody that's online is going to get a pop-up on their WebEx that says join breakout session. You have two options, join now or join later. If you're ready to join, just click join now. If you need a minute, then you can hit join later, but I'll be sending that through right now.
Don't wait before you, will sending that through pull us out of this general meeting? And then we have
yes,
to
once,
and somebody will
correct.
be able to instruct us how to come back. Okay, so before we leave the general meeting, I need to make a motion
Commissioner, may I
because we will be,
clarify?
I'm sorry, who said that? I heard clarify, but I don't know who's asking. Okay, so there has to be a motion before we leave the session. Since I have it in front of me, I'm going to make.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
No, no, I need to read this.
I don't think that we are actually leaving the meeting. We are only going to breakout rooms, and then we are coming
Commissioners,
back.
I've been asked by the county attorney to make this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I move we recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting during the breakout room sessions to discuss population goals 1 and 2. To be clear, no more than one commissioner will be in a breakout room. In addition, no action will be taken in the breakout rooms as the participants have no authority to act on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. Instead, the Board of County Commissioners as a body will discuss and potentially take action on the strategic plan in this or a future public meeting. In other words, we're going to recess the joint meeting during the breakout sessions, and then when we come back, that will be the only place that we're actually taking actions. So I appreciate everybody's help and concern. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So I don't know if our clerk is around.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you for a vote on that motion.
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia, should I
I'm
give
sorry.
a little bit more time?
No, let's move on.
Okay.
Commissioner?
And
Go
I
ahead,
would vote yes.
Commissioner.
I would vote yes as well.
All right. It passes.
Thank you very much. Now, I heard somebody.
Commissioner,
Yes, Mark.
I just think it would be good to clarify going in, given in light of the likely stopping time of 12:30. I think we should focus this first breakout session on population goal, specifically number 1, so there's enough time, and that people would take would take a 70-minute block of time for the discussion of goal number 1 and following the numbers about the priority setting exercise at the end of that time. So 60 minutes to discuss and 10 minutes to do a little priority voting exercise. And then I think we could come back to the main room within the time left that we have and observe the limitations that we're working with.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Commissioner Hanson?
So what if we make it through population goal 1 and we want to move on to population goal 2 because we happen to think that's more important? I mean, you know, they're both important, obviously.
I assume that what we don't do today, we will have in break, we will cover all 4 of them between today and tomorrow in breakout sessions. Is that confirmed?
I hope
Mark
so.
or Manager
Madam
Miller?
Chair.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are clear if there are no other concerns, to go back to Daniel and have us.
Madam Chair, just
Yes,
real
Manager
quickly,
Miller.
it seems that there's some consternation about whether we'll get through this and whether we'll get to talk about what individual commissioners consider to be important. We'll get through it and we'll make sure that you have ample time to discuss your concerns. And if we have to make another session, we'll make another session. Doing strategic planning online like this is not, I said before, it's going to be challenging. I know it's challenging, but we wanted to make sure that we did it before we got to the budget so that you had an opportunity to give us some guidance of what you think is most important. So we'll make sure that you have time one way or the other.
That's appreciated, Manager Miller. Are there other questions or concerns, or can I turn this over to Daniel to shuffle us off into breakout sessions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to make a clarification. We are going to go into 5 groups.
Yes.
And 1 commissioner is assigned to each group. And staff is also assigned to each group to support the conversations. Mark Bennett will be our facilitator, so he'll be jumping from one session, from one breakout room to another to help the conversations. I just wanted to give that clarification.
That's appreciated. Is there anybody who does not know what group they're assigned to? There was an Excel file sent to everybody.
I think it doesn't matter because Daniel will assign us.
No, I think, is that true, Daniel? It goes to, you only get an invitation to your group, or do you have to pick your correct group on the screen?
Yeah, it's going to send you straight to your group that I assigned
fabulous.
you to.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Okay, so let's proceed, Daniel.
Madam Chair,
Okay, I'm going to send the join.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you.
Are you on a computer?
Yes, I'm unmuted, but I'm having trouble with my speaker. So, but yes, I'll try to figure it out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
But Commissioner, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia, are you on a computer because you can't call into a breakout session by phone? Unless
So
it's
no, I will
with a
actually go
computer.
get my computer. Give me about 5-10 minutes. I'll go get my computer and I'll hook it up.
Okay, because it just doesn't allow you. It doesn't allow breakout sessions by phone. Sorry.
Okay, so I'll go.
I believe he's logged in through the application, and he should be able to.
Oh, okay.
Because it let me assign him, so we should be okay.
Madam Chair, Manager Miller, I'll
Yes.
go get my computer because I need to be on the computer because my phone has not good service here. So I'll go get my computer and give me like 5 minutes and I'll be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to submit the start breakout sessions invite now. When I end the session, everybody's going to see a little red dot at the top right, and it's going to give a timer of 60 seconds, and then it'll automatically pull everybody into the main meeting again.
Or they have to click, okay,
They would have to click, yeah.
okay. And is there anyone else that is not a staff member that's from the public that has any questions? No.
So,
Okay.
Elias, should you and I have a little conversation about the time and the timekeeping? Do you think everybody's got it clear, or do we need to talk, you and I talk offline a little bit about that?
Madam Chair mentioned about an hour. So that takes us to about 11:30. We should probably give them the hour and then kind of check in and have them do their ranking thereafter, and then we can bring everyone back. That way we have ample time as a large group to talk about the conversations that each group had. Because I feel like maybe because it's the beginning of the process, we may have some hiccups here or there. So this will be a good opportunity for us to learn what we need to improve for tomorrow to make it a lot smoother.
That makes sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, and I think tomorrow, because we don't have any other presentations, we can start with potentially goal number 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then we can kind of look at our timelines a little bit better and allocate that time budget for the next 3 goals. But I think as a group this afternoon, we can kind of see what we need to improve for the next 3 goals, so that way there's a structure and we know what the expectations are.
I agree with that. You know, we lost some time at the beginning of the meeting, and then I don't know what the signal was with me, but I thought it was a 4-hour block. So I'd been budgeting, for
And
9 to 1.
that was my fault as well. In my head, I had talked to Catherine, and I thought it was 4 hours, but it is scheduled for 3. Once I looked at a different email. So.
Okay, very good. All right.
So,
I'm going to start.
and tomorrow is from 9:30 to 12:30. So, but yes, we're all good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome.
Daniel.
So I should start sharing that other screen?
Yes, I think it'd be good to start sharing the screen, just so that way, in the event someone from the public comes in that has not, they can see, and you'll be rotating it, right? So that way.
It's on a loop. Every 10 seconds, it'll change screens.
Okay, sure.
breakout session.
Session D is as well.
Daniel, do you know how many other breakout sessions are back with us? Maybe Daniel's not with us. Manager Miller, do you have any idea whether all the breakout groups are back yet?
Madam Chair, I do not think they are. I can
You're back, but
I can hear one from another room, but let me see if I can get them to send them back. Because they were supposed to get a notice when they had 60 seconds left and get sent back to the big group. So let me see if I can find why we don't have, I don't think A and B are back yet.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Madam Chair, everybody will be coming back in a second. We're going to end their groups and send everyone to the main group if they have not, even if they haven't finished.
Okay. And then what do we want to accomplish in the last half hour, since many groups probably only talked about goal 1 and some might have ventured into parts of goal 2?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about goal 1 and then some lessons learned, like anything that we have that might make it easier to get through them. So I think we'll just do goal 1.
Cool.
Because I don't think anybody got all the way through 1 and 2.
Okay, great.
Mark, is it your thought that each group will report back their top priorities in goal 1, population goal 1? Oh, you're muted.
Mark, I see you talking, but you're muted.
That was my thought. You know, the conversations are. I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, sorry.
No, we can hear you now. Now you're muted.
Can you hear
Now
me
we
now?
can hear you. Yes.
No? No.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you. Catherine, can you tell
Thank
Mark
you.
that we can hear
So
him because he's not understanding me?
The conversation was really engaged and substantive, and yeah, everybody needed the time they had to really work through goal number 1. That was my experience. I just heard you, Madam Chair.
So I believe we have everybody back.
I did
I don't think
hear you. I heard you.
Are all of the groups back? Do we have everybody A, B, C, D, and E back?
My math, but yes, this is Commissioner Garcia. I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes, all groups are back.
Okay, so hate to have to ask, do we have to do something to formally re-adjourn? Do I have to have a motion to come out of breakouts? Okay, so we are reassembled here. So we are re-engaged in the full group and public meeting. And I think the intention now is to get report outs from each group. And I will either go to Mark or Manager Miller, whoever is going to take it from here, and get every group to do their report out on goal 1.
Madam Chair, if I may, Mark will walk us through on this process to hear from all 5 groups. Mark.
Thank you.
I think there's some delay in our conversation with Mark, so maybe some network inconsistencies are occurring. I can see you very well, Mark. Maybe, but I can't hear you.
You don't
Still
seem to
can't
be
hear you,
muted, but
Mark.
we can't hear you, Mark.
And it does seem like there's a delay, Mr. Bennett. If you turn off your video feed, that might help with the speed of the communication.
Just so you know, we still can't hear you.
Daniel, is there a possibility that he's having a problem with his earphones, and if you might want to suggest that next step, removing his earphones?
Okay. Let's see. Elias, can you send me his phone number so I can give him a phone call, please?
Yes.
While he works that out, do we want to move on to the group reports and maybe just start with Group A? Would that work for everybody?
I didn't want to supersede Mark necessarily, but yes, I don't want to wait too long. So obviously we can move from A to B to C to D. That's a good idea. Manager or Elias, can we get Group A going? And just hope Mark can get reconnected to us?
Madam
Would you
Chair,
mind?
yes, I agree. I think we can move forward with hearing Group A's conversation. conversations on
So,
population goal 1.
yes, so we're just reporting out on population goal 1, and if there was whoever was designated to be the spokesperson for Group A, can you take the floor?
Madam Chair, if you want to start with Group B, I'll be more than happy. We can go backwards.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button, but County Manager Miller.
Okay, you came in just in time, Director Cedillo. Oh my God.
Okay, Group A, we did a ranking system when we have voting on that. So the first one we did was the access to reentry program and wraparound services. And I think it's very important that any transition from an institution back into the community has to be a smooth transition. I think it's important of the recidivism coming back into our facility as well. I think that is a very important aspect of our group and in terms of our goals. And I think I'm reading these correctly. If I'm not, Rachel O'Connor, you can help me out. The next one is 1.4.1, create youth services division with community services department. I think this is a very important because our youth is actually our future, and it's very important that the youth are very viable in our community, and we need to have more programs within the community. I think our director Quintana made a very good comment in terms of types of programs that kids can go to stay out of trouble, actually. And we have to work with our stakeholders within our community, Boys and Girls Club, CYFD, and the judiciary as well. I think our third one was ranking our create a year-round sustained wildland program, which we've pretty much established on that. And that's very important to our community as a whole in terms of fire mitigation and protecting property. Number 4 is, let's see if I have this correctly. I think 4 is back to 1.3, if I'm reading this correctly. And we did talk about the safety and security inside the internal facility of an institution. As we discussed, that is a pretty standard requirement for a facility, and we maintain that very well. Number 5 is a sustained emergency management plans on 1.2.3. I think that's very important as we just discovered with COVID-19. Our emergency management in all of the county and all the state, as well as nationally, we had to change the way we do business. And that is an emergency management assistance with community service, because it is also carries over into a health issue for our community. So I think always having a ready-made emergency plans available to us, and things change. We never expected COVID-19, but it happened, and we had to adjust. I think the county adjusted very well in terms of that, and it's very evident by our leadership and what they did in terms of keeping everybody safe. Let's see, number 6, we had respond promptly to service. No, I'm sorry. The fire department's organizational structure. And we talked a little bit about succession planning on that. And I think it should happen in all the departments within the county. Ensuring that we have that mentorship in terms of if somebody leaves, somebody can step into that role. And I think it's important that all of us participate on that mentorship program, all the leaders within the county. Number 7, the transition to the next generation 911 system, that is still ongoing. I know the state is now being involved in this, And I think that's something that has been a long time coming. And I think we still have a ways to go to get that to be compliant with that system. Number 8 is create a hazardous mitigation strategy and program. We currently are doing that right now. All the mitigation strategy is being updated. So I think that's a very important. I kind of discussed that at the beginning of protecting property within Santa Fe County. Rachel, did I hit them all? I think that's it for us then.
So, could I ask a quick question? Does that mean
Sure.
the items that are listed that have no ranking are considered, could be taken off the list? The items that
I think
number 1.
I don't think they should be taken off the list. I think, and County Attorney Schaefer might want to jump in on this, but I think we were trying to prioritize our top items on this, and we have the top 8. I think everyone is pretty important.
Thank you. If I could just add to that, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Yes.
We understood our task was to really zero in and try to prioritize what we thought was most important. And that's how we, approached our work. It's not to say that other things that aren't on the list of strategies are important, but we approached it with the mindset per our facilitator of trying to really prioritize what we felt was most important.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to Group B. Manager Miller, I gather you're the spokesperson.
No, Madam Chair, I'm in Group E. I was saying we could go from E to A.
I misunderstood. I'm so sorry. Group B, that's you, Commissioner Hanson?
It is, and Gary
Thank you.
Haron is going to give the presentation for us.
Thank you. Mr. Haron.
Commissioner Hamilton, our priorities, I'm going to go through our priorities. We did not list them in order, so these will be the priorities as I'll just go through each one of them. Strategy 1.1.1 to create year-round sustained wildland program. Strategy 1.1.2 to create hazard mitigation strategy and program. The next one is 1.2.2, which is to transition to next generation 911 compliance system. 1.2.3, sustain emergency management plans. 1.2.4, conduct regular DWI saturation patrols. 1.2.5, update countywide interoperable public safety land mobile radio system. 1.2.6, respond promptly to service calls. 1.4.1, create a youth services division within Community Services Department. And we also voted on 2 of the objectives that were submitted by commissioners, which is one of them is 1.6 is to designate secure locations for shooting ranges in districts 2 and 3. And 1.8, water supply security and emergency awareness. And to go along with what the other committee said is this was our attempt to prioritize, but not a vote to remove. I don't think we got that far, but this was the priority from all of the group input. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Okay, thank you. Who is for Group C? Oh, Commissioner Hanson?
I'm sorry, it takes, for some reason, it doesn't unmute that easily. We did believe that we could remove the install new RCC computer dispatch equipment because that has been done. And then with the item that Commissioner Roybal added, was to enhance adult and youth detention facilities, and we removed the word youth and enhance detention center facilities. So we just left that the way it is. And we also removed operate adult detention centers and center and removed youth because that's irrelevant. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So who's the spokesperson for Group C?
That's Tessa, Commissioner Hamilton.
Fabulous, you've got it.
Okay, so we did our rankings kind of a little bit different. The things that we noted to be of the highest priority were the update to countywide interoperable public safety land mobile radio system due to the importance that it takes for agencies to connect with each other in times of emergency. We also noted the importance of responding promptly to service calls in public safety. Another of our top priorities was enhancing the adult and youth detention center facility. So on that, the suggestion was by Chief Lindsay under 1.2.6, enhancing the prompt service calls. She suggested that we reference NFPA 17-10. So those were our top priorities. As far coming next would be the creation of a hazard mitigation strategy, sustaining emergency management plans, and conducting neighborhood watch meetings, as well as the facility reentry program. One thing that was identified as a priority by Commissioner Garcia was the continued upgrades to the IT equipment for RECC, as well as the upgrades to the building as being a priority to him, the RECC and public safety buildings. So following that, then we cited the improvements of the commercial property fire prevention and inspection program, conducting regular DWI saturation patrols. With regard to maintaining accreditation and certification for detention facilities, one thing that was mentioned by the warden that we all found exceptionally important was that the actual actions behind accreditation and certification were more important than the documentation, ensuring that everything is done correctly was more important than just, say, the piece of paper. As far as ensuring Medicaid enrollment, the warden did report that that has been going relatively well. However, they are continuing to try to improve services, so we cited that kind of as a mid-range priority. And probably last, but still important, we listed the study of the fire department organizational structure. Did I miss anything?
Tessa, this is the sheriff. Did we, I was trying to add that classification in reference to the diversion program.
Yes, that's right. The sheriff suggested, sorry, I'm trying to go between my Excel spreadsheet and my notes. The sheriff suggested adding the implementation of the law enforcement diversion program to item 1.4.
Great, thank you. So that moves us to Group D, and Leas is our spokesperson for that group.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I just wanted to make sure Mr. Bennett had an audio connection, if you don't mind. Can you say something, Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I think I finally have patched in through a different audio connection. Thank you, Madam Chair, for seamlessly stepping in and moving things forward. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you. It's all yours.
Okay. So yeah, I appreciate the report so far. I think we just need to make sure we've got about 13 minutes left that we get everybody's report, if we can, before we adjourn at 12:30, which I believe is our understanding at this point. So whoever's next on deck, please.
Madam Chair? Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you, Elise.
Okay. I was the designee by fault of my own, just so everybody knows. I didn't turn on my camera on time, and I couldn't defend myself. So I'll do my best to explain everything for everyone. We didn't do the ranking. What we focused on is we had rich conversations on the objectives and the strategies. And what we talked about was on objective 1, enhanced fire protection programs. We discussed about having an urban wildlife interface or wildlife urban, Jesse Law, ingress, egress, fill in the gaps, wildland interface, provide financial hardship for constituents who can't get insurance. So it would be advantageous if we were able to add a strategy for the objective itself. We also wanted to see if we can have, if we can evaluate vulnerable areas in the county and develop responses to those vulnerable areas. We also talked about potentially adding a strategy that is protecting our water resources from any wild fires. But I think Adelina or no, Angie, I believe, talked that we could potentially. Okay, thank you. We could add that in goal 2. The other area that we talked about, and we had some questions, we had strategy 1.26 and 1.27, respond promptly to service calls and study fire department organizational structure. The group felt that that was more of a management concept rather than a strategy. So that's some conversations to be had. We also talked about enhancing the youth intervention program and creating a division. And I think that's strategy 1.41, create a youth services division within our community services department. It's something that we would have liked to enhance, knowing the circumstances that we don't have a youth detention center and the pandemic. And I believe that's all of our notes. Did I miss anything from my group? I think I covered it all.
I think you covered most, but just for a slight clarification, the vulnerable areas we were talking about identifying were wildland urban interface. So areas particularly vulnerable to catastrophic wildfires, and to make plans for addressing those. So back to you, Mark. I guess that only leaves section breakout group E.
Madam Chair, Mark, that would be, oh, Mark, you're muted if you're talking. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
I'm sorry, no, please go ahead. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share mine, but I don't know if I can. You'll have to tell me if it, for some reason there's 2 of them and I only want the last one we did. Does that have?
Yes, you're sharing.
Does it have? Okay. I think it has the ranking as well, doesn't it? With a yellow column. Okay. So our group had much similar conversations as what everybody else has said. We did go, I have to say they were very efficient and added provide a lot of comments. We were probably the only group that didn't have somebody from public safety. So they were relying on my knowledge of where we stand on all of these things. So that could be a weighting factor. But overall, I think that the group are most important. We had 2 areas that we had ranked with 9 people voting as a top priority, and that was the reentry programs and wraparound services at the jail. We felt that that was something that is a high priority and needs to continue to be an area of focus. And the other was responding promptly to service calls, specifically within RECC, and that where we had a goal of a time frame, 10 minutes, we said maybe we ought to look at creating something less arbitrary and something more specific to each fire station or district. Then we also talked about a high priority. The next high priority was regular DWI saturation patrols, but we wanted to kind of expand that goal area to more traffic patrols, not just DWI. The discussion revolved around while we don't necessarily think there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of bad drivers, speeding, improper use of their vehicles, that type of thing, no signals. So hoping that we could increase, and the sheriff, that we want to talk to the sheriff about increasing traffic safety. Then the next area was also the radio. Oh wait, let me make sure I'm looking at my ranking, not my, the adult detention facility. We agreed taking out references to the youth facility since we didn't have it anymore, but actually making sure that we enhance the adult internal safety, and right equal with that is making sure that we keep our accreditation, that accreditation is the making sure all of our policies, procedures, and documentation is in place, and then making sure that the staff is properly trained and outfitted to keep that level of safety that accreditation would indicate we have. Then another area was, look at me, the wildland hazard mitigation and the wildland program. While we said, we noted that a crew, year-round crew is established, we really want to make sure we focus energy on the mitigation, hazard mitigation strategy and program. And then I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, because we didn't have anybody in the group that was from the sheriff's office or from public safety, we all still did think that the STEP program and any kind of safety training and education was important. And youth services division, or some focus on youth services, if not another division, that was the next priority. Making sure we get Medicaid enrollment, and then the radio system. And I believe the next gen, I might have skipped that one, but that one was also one that was of concern to the group. One thing that, and we just had noted that it appeared we weren't really working on that because we had focused on the CAD system and the RECC portion of the radio system. So I think I covered most of it. We agreed on the idea of taking out those things that are maybe completed, and then we also had, where we didn't vote on something, it wasn't that it wasn't important, like the fire department structure. It just wasn't one that we thought was a county-wide priority. So I think that I got it. I don't know if any of the other group members had some thoughts about it. I think we had a lesson learned. It would have been helpful for us to have some folks from public safety in our group. We didn't have anyone from any of the 4 public safety areas, and so we didn't have a lot of information relative to details about fire or sheriff's operations.
Thank you, Catherine. So, Madam Chair, I'm cognizant of the time. We have just a minute or two, and I'm assuming you have something formal to do before we end the meeting. If I'm following parliamentary rules, we're going to try and modify the process a little bit for tomorrow to try and take advantage of what we learned from the bumps today. And we certainly learned that people have things to say and contribute, and everybody was really engaged. So I'm grateful for all the engagement today, and we'll put our heads together as a planning team to figure out how to move with the time we have tomorrow to best advantage.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. And we all really appreciate how much effort was put in by Manager Miller, Deputy Manager Bernardino, and all the senior staff to arrange this under what are very difficult circumstances, doing this virtually. Just wanted to remind everybody that we have scheduled 2 meetings. This is kind of the formal statement I had to make, Mark alluded to. And we have 1 agenda that we're covering this morning and tomorrow. So even when we adjourn today, we will pick up where we tomorrow, where we stopped today. So tomorrow we would be back into agenda item 6, which is starting with population goal 2. And so unless there are any other questions or comments, and I guess one is that I assume after you guys work today and revise our approach slightly, when we open the meeting tomorrow, we'll start with setting those ground rules or establishing how we'll proceed to use those 3 hours. And if nobody else has anything, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, really quick, I have a couple of questions. Just a couple of comments. If I can just say, thank you for staff for putting this together, and great job. This is awesome, and just make a motion for adjournment.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. So I have a motion and a second. As our regular chair, Commissioner Roybal, would say, all in favor say bye.
Bye.
See you all tomorrow.